Hey friends, thanks so much for stopping by. Today I'm making a turquoise and driftwood wreath. I can't help but pick up driftwood every time I'm at the beach, so I'm going to be using some of this that I had in my stash. I'm using a 12-inch wooden wreath form along with 64 inches of jute. I had these pieces of turquoise shell on hand, so I'm using these as an accent. I'm making my wreath as part of the Coastal Summer DIY Challenge hosted by Heidi Sonboul. She has an amazing channel. I'm going to link it below in my description along with the playlist for this challenge. Getting started, I'm using this $2.99 wreath form that I bought at Michael's, and I'm going to attach my jute to make a hanger. This form has pre-drilled holes, which makes it easy to attach the hanger. I decided how long I wanted my hanger and I pulled the jute through the holes. I then knotted each end 2 times to hold it in place. Once that was done, I wrapped the rest of the jute around the hanger and I knotted it at each end. I'm using jute for my hanger, but wire would work just as well. To finish up, I cut off the excess jute, then hot glued the centerpiece to the form. With that done, it was now time to decide how large I wanted the wreath. I chose some pieces of my driftwood and then I measured them against the form. I was happy with the size, so I used 1 piece of driftwood as the guide. Using a pencil, I marked the end and then clipped it off. I knew I'd need quite a few pieces for this project, so I continued to mark them and clip them until I thought I had enough. When you work with driftwood, you can never quite tell what type of wood it is, and so some of the pieces would cut really easily and others were more difficult. With all my pieces cut and ready, I'm now going to hot glue them onto the form. This part is pretty easy. I decided which piece I wanted to start with and I hot glued it onto the form. I made sure that the flat end was in the center, and I left a bit of the flat edge of driftwood hanging over the edge of the form. While I'm attaching the pieces, I'm pressing them close to each other, but I'm also trying to keep them straight. As you continue adding the pieces, it will start to look like the sun. Now that the first layer is complete, we're going to use more driftwood and fill in between all those empty spaces. I love making these driftwood wreaths because every one is unique and each one ends up looking different. Continuing on, I'm using my cut pieces to fill in all the open voids. As my wreath grew, I began placing the hot glue on the ends of the wood. The reason I started doing this was because after you have a couple of layers of the wood, the hot glue would seep down between them. So placing it directly on the wood allowed it to attach to the other pieces. To finish off the top part of the wreath, I'm using my thinnest, roundest pieces of driftwood. I'm guessing these were branches that at one point ended up in the ocean, and this is just personal preference. I just wanted to give my wreath a little bit of a rounded look, so I saved these for the end. I only had a handful of these pieces and I evenly hot glued them around the wreath. These wreaths are selling for $100 and upward on Etsy, and you know what? It only cost me $2.99 plus my hot glue to make. And here is the end result of you all watching me glue on my pieces of driftwood. To finish up the wreath and give it a little bling, I'm using these turquoise shells that I had on hand. I wanted them spaced evenly around the center circle, so I laid them out to get their spacing before I hot glued them into place. I'm using these pieces of shells to embellish my wreath, but you can use anything you like, starfish, other shells, flowers, anything at all. Now that my shell pieces are exactly where I want them, I'm going to hot glue them into place. I spend a lot of my time on the southern coast of Maine, and that's where I've picked up all these pieces of driftwood. And it's so nice to be able to make something that reminds me of my happy place. I also made a driftwood mirror with the wood that I've picked up, and I absolutely love it. I have it hanging in my beach house, and I'm going to link that video above in case you'd like to go and check it out. With all my pieces attached, my project is complete. It was super easy to make, and the best part, it was basically free. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me. You never know what I'll be making next, so if you think you'd like to come back and hang out with me again, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.